Hey lovelies! So I'm going to go ahead and do an anxiety video today. I'm going to be reading from the National Institute of Mental Health, and I picked this topic because it's what's been coming up a lot since the move across country. Um, and I feel like it's important to better explain it because not a lot of people understand anxiety is more than just anxiety. There's panic disorders, there's different phobias that fall under the anxiety umbrella. So there's a lot that goes into it: panic attacks, anxiety attacks, things like that. But the National Institute of Mental Health says that um, anxiety disorders involve more than temporary worry or fear. For a person with an anxiety disorder, that anxiety does not go away and can get worse over time. The symptoms can interfere with daily activities such as um, job performance, schoolwork, and relationships, which is very true in my experience. Anxiety has affected my confidence in my performance at work and school. In some schoolwork, it's made me very complacent and not complete work that I should have, especially in high school when my anxiety was developing or presenting. But people with generalized anxiety disorder display excessive anxiety or worry most days for at least 6 months, and about a number of things such as personal health, work, social interactions, and everyday routine life circumstances. So it spreads into, or bleeds, or however you want to understand it, it spreads into different aspects of your life. The fear and anxiety can cause significant problems in the environments that were mentioned before. Um, these symptoms for generalized anxiety disorder itself is feeling restless, wound up, or on edge, being easily fatigued, having difficulty concentrating or the mind going blank, being irritable, difficulty controlling feelings of worry, having sleep problems such as difficulty falling or staying asleep, restlessness, and unsatisfactory sleep. Now, it goes on to explain that the symptoms for panic disorder are more severe. They're heart palpitations, a pounding heartbeat, or an accelerated heart rate, sweating, trembling, shaking, sensations of shortness of breath, smothering or choking, feelings of impending doom, feelings of being out of control. And so I have been diagnosed with anxiety, but I believe I fall under panic because my heart will race. My palms, my back, the back of my neck, my forehead will start to sweat if I get really anxious. Hold on. Gotta get that water in the desert, man. It is serious out here. And I do have that feeling of impending doom a lot. Like I said, you really need to know the differences, and I will also say that it's important to work with health professionals and make sure that you get an accurate diagnosis. um, Different phobias are like flying, heights, specific animals, spiders, dogs, needles, blood, things like that. um, but one of the big ones that I I know resonates with me is agoraphobia. And people think that's like people that will never go outside and they hole up in their houses, and it can get that extreme. But it also includes using public transportation, being in open spaces or enclosed spaces, standing in line or being in a crowd, and being outside of the home alone. And people with agoraphobia often avoid these situations in part because they think being able to leave might be difficult or impossible in the event they have panic like reactions or other embarrassing symptoms. In the most severe forms of agoraphobia, an individual can become homebound, like I was saying. But see, here's the thing: is that like that is a concern. Is that it it becomes okay, what happens if I start to have an anxiety attack or a panic attack? What if I can't breathe? What if I'm out in public and I'm by myself? Like, it does present different issues, or like The most recently for me, where the worry has been coming up in a public situation is, what if I'm on a date and I get super anxious and I'm uncomfortable, and how do I explain that? How do I process that? How do I make it less awkward, So for some people, that worry, that fear of these types of situations and not being able to get out of them and being stuck in that panic and not being able to breathe and feeling overwhelmed, that can be enough to make them limit the life that they live. And I don't want to be one of those people. Like, I get it, and it's hard to not be one of those people, but I fight every day to not be. And some of that is because of the different therapies that I've been through. Treatments and therapies include psychotherapy or talk therapy. Didn't really work for me. I did that in high school. It just, I don't know, it didn't resonate. It wasn't something, it just felt very casual and not really like digging and doing the work. Cognitive behavioral therapy is also suggested for anxiety disorders. And it says that it can also help people learn and practice social skills, which is vital for treating social anxiety disorder, which is totally true. But I've noticed that for me, because of my other comorbidities, it helps me more when I do EMDR to work through the trauma that has caused some of these anxiety responses, and DBT that helps me work through the mental part and the steps of implementing the social skills that are important for treatment. But that's just me. Everyone's different, so just do the research, find out what you feel more comfortable with, try out what you're willing to try out, see what resonates, what doesn't. Same thing goes for medications. Anti-anxiety medications, or benzodiazepines is what they're most commonly called. Or, yeah. Some people benefit from them, some don't. Other medications that are for different mental health disorders, not necessarily specifically anxiety, can increase your anxiety. Or in people that are don't have anxiety at all, different medications can cause anxiety. So it's just a matter of, being aware of what symptoms pop up when you're on a new medication, being aware of how new medications are making you feel, if they're working, if they're not working, and being able to articulate to your doctor at your next med check why they're not working or how they are working, so that you can either stay where you're at, increase dosage, lower dosage. Sometimes people need to lower dosage. For me, like, I was on Prozac for my bipolar depression, and it worked great in high school, but it was with several other medications, so it was fine. But a few years ago, I was on it, and it increased my anxiety so much, I started getting self-injurious thoughts on a very regular basis because my anxiety was so high. I would get down the rabbit hole of, my anxiety makes me a burden. Like, it fed and got worse and worse and worse, and my doctor wasn't listening. It eventually got to the point about a year in that I became suicidal because my anxiety was so high, and I was so embarrassed and so overwhelmed on such a consistent basis because of this medication. Even when she increased it, she increased it 3 different times, and it just was bad news bears. So just advocate, articulate what you can, write things down in your notes on your phone, take it with you to your doctor's appointments. Make sure that you're clear and really working with your doctor, not just them writing a prescription and you just taking it. That is not going to help you. For some people with anxiety disorders, antidepressants are prescribed because they treat depression and anxiety. And they can help improve the way that your brain uses certain chemicals that control mood or stress. And you may need to try several different antidepressant medications, same as with the anti-anxiety ones, before finding one that improves your symptoms and has manageable side effects. And so, if you know people that have a history of anxiety in your family, or other mental illnesses, anxiety is the same. It has genetic factors to it. So if there's a history of anxiety in your family, you're more predisposed, you're more likely to have it. But anxiety also comes from environment. If you're exposed to stressful and negative life or environmental events in early childhood or adulthood, it can happen later in life. It's not just, when you're little and it develops and that's it. A history of anxiety, other mental illness in the biological relative, some physical conditions such as thyroid problems, heart arrhythmias, or sensitivity to caffeine or other substances or other medications that you're on, like I explained, can produce or aggravate anxiety symptoms. A physical health examination is helpful in the evaluation of a possible anxiety disorder. Duh. You cannot say that you have something without being medically diagnosed with it. And again, even sometimes you might not agree with your diagnosis. I'm described it or diagnosed as having generalized anxiety disorder. I believe it's a panic disorder. But it's all under the same umbrella. It's all treated relatively the same way. So it's not a big deal. Or maybe my anxiety has increased and become panic. I don't know. Maybe that's a whole other thing to research and figure out. But that's everything that is listed on the National Institute of Mental Health. One thing I will say is that I believe that some anxiety is hard to understand because it's more than just being irritable. Some people that I know that are anxious, myself included, little things can make them angry out of nowhere. Social situations can make you anxious for a multitude of reasons. I've been lied to, I've been abused, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, and it has helped rewire my brain to become more anxious. So like if someone stops talking to me all of a sudden, or like their tone changes, or they're not as playful or joking as much with me, I notice those changes and I overthink them, even though I don't want to. And that's just like, that's part of the anxiety. Some friends, you'll realize that they're anxious because they'll be super excited about plans and then last minute they'll cancel without really much of an explanation. Usually it's because they're afraid of being able to be in the safe environment, or what happens, or they're having a weak day. Like they're tired, they're exhausted, they know they're more likely to be triggered, and they just don't want to expose themselves to potential anxiety causing situations. There's a lot of different ways that it presents. So again, just see a medical health professional, go over your symptoms, explain why you think you're anxious, what you're feeling, or even if you don't know if you're anxious, but some of these symptoms kind of resonate with you, speak with a mental health professional and let's see what's going on. Because there's nothing wrong with getting help. There's nothing wrong with seeking therapy. There's nothing wrong with doing meds, or I've got incense burning over there right now. Make sure you drink your water. I have essential oils for calming, for sleep. There's all sorts of, everybody's different. Find what works for you, and let's just end the stigma. Let's start talking about this stuff. Speak with your mom, talk to your dad. Like, is there a history of this in our family? With your friends, be like, hey, I know we're supposed to go out, but I'm really anxious tonight, and I'm not sure that I'll be comfortable if I do get more anxious, and maybe I'll end up just wanting to leave. And, find those friends that are like, that's okay. If you need to leave, you can leave, but we've got your back. If something happens, we're there for you. Because that helps. That prevents you from missing out on life. And so there's ways to cope with anxiety. Counting to 10, breathing exercises, writing things out, listening to music. It's all can be catered to your individual likes, needs, things like that. So don't worry if you have anxiety. There's a way to make it work and not be something that does distract or harm your different aspects of your life. So Thank you, lovelies, for listening. Sorry for the long video, but like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you'd like to hear about, and I look forward to seeing you guys later. Bye.